hear exactly what you're saying to us. But, well, as you can see, she's standing by right there. And she's going to give us a live update of what has been happening so far. As we mentioned to you earlier, the formerly named Twitter, X, is agog with a lot of trends about this particular issue. And as we have told you, justices said, look, we're going to take a short break of about 15 minutes to do the needful and then come back to us. Well, you mentioned Nyota the other time. Nyota is also right there in Abuja. Hopefully he will have a couple of people to speak to us. But for now, just to give you that update, that expectations are high. And it's also instructive what the police spokesman mentioned earlier, that every one of us should recognize that we have one nation, that we must prioritize its interests. Everyone who is agitating one way or the other, we definitely love the country Nigeria. That's the reason we're doing everything that we are doing. So now that that is our reality, our words, our thoughts, our deeds should be guided in that reaction.
Absolutely. Even though civil society has advocated, before now, just hours before today's ruling, that, the right to protest, by the civil society should be respected. But amid all of that, we must prioritize the stability of the polity above all other interests. So if there will be any protest should be done responsibly without any violence.
Absolutely.
Every agitation must be ventilated responsibly.
Because it's for the love of country that every one of us is doing what we are doing, and that should be the major thing. Well, you asked for Nyota the other time. Well, he is also, should I say, sitting by, ready to take this on. So Nyota, so far, so good. 1 down, 3 to go.
I was actually looking at the trends, and I noticed a couple of things that are really, really trending. For instance, it appears all of Nigeria is watching, and on all the platforms. Yes, a lot of people are watching what we're doing here on mainstream television. Some are watching via live stream on the different platforms. We're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and all of that. But looking at the trends on X, I see that the Supreme Court has about 137 posts. Top trend, 134 at the Supreme Court. Each will be 137 posts. Top trends, those are among the top trends. The PPT judgment is 66.2 thousand posts. Trending in Nigeria, 25% FCT is also top on the post. Justice Samani is amongst the top trends today. But everyone wants to know what the judges are saying. Indeed, the APM case struck out the judges said, I'm paraphrasing here, not their words exactly. It looks like as though they're interfering in another party's matter when it comes to double nomination, and then that the Supreme Court had settled the matter of double nomination, besides the fact that they didn't file that case in time. But I'm not here alone. I actually have Dr. Titoju here, who's been monitoring what's happening there. You should have seen him screaming. He was, you know how it is in primary school when you had, is it primary secondary school, when the teacher comes in and says, take notes, bring out your pens and papers, you're taking notes. That's what Dr. Titoju was doing here. So I'm sure you'd have some comments on this judgment. We also have here in the studio joining us Professor Ademola Abbas, who's a professor of international law and global affairs analyst. He's a visiting senior research fellow, University of Reading, UK, former special advisor to the Lagos State Governor on overseas affairs and investment. Thank you for joining us, Abbas.
Thank you very much for having me.
So before we come to you for a fresh perspective, let's find out from the man that was taking the notes earlier. Dr. Titoju, what were you writing?
Well, I was actually following the positions that has been laid down by the Supreme Court via the decision of this of the presidential election petition. Very fundamental. The court went through the objections, took APM's objections, even though it has been, of course, consolidated the entire petition, each of those petitions will still be independent of itself. Now, the APM petition was struck out at the preliminary stage. And then the judges went down into the substance and also dismissed it. So it was struck out, merit was entertained, and was finally dismissed. In arriving at the decision, the primary stage, the court found that the issue of double nomination is a pre-election matter. And they don't have jurisdiction to entertain it. And of course, we have legions of authority that when the pre-election matters are, brought before the petition, the petitioner, the court, the tribunal, which is the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, would not entertain such election because they are not issues that are brought up during election.
Okay, so while Dr. Chistoji is talking about his take from the judgment of the election petition court, we'll bring you live footage of what's going on within the courtroom. The lawyers are still seated, waiting for the judges who have taken a break to return from their break and then continue. Still have some other judgments that need to be passed. The petition of the PDP and the Labour Party would have to come up next. I can't say which particular order, but we'll get to that as we go along. And I mentioned earlier that we have Professor Abbas. Again, our studio within the court premises is still there live. Our colleagues Chimlin and Sean will be joining us much later. We also have our correspondents in the court premises and outside the court premises also keeping tabs on what's happening. We'll bring them to you in the course of this conversation. Shola Shwele is there, Ella is also there. But Professor Baz, the question some people are asking is, why say if you have any grievance, go to court? If these matters had already been settled, going by what the judge said, had already been settled by the Supreme Court, why tell people go to court on the same matter? Is it a question of the lawyers not paying attention of the judgments that have been given before?
Well, thank you very much. It's not necessarily so, but you're right in that question. It's a very fundamental question because I think it's also going to play out in the subsequent judgment the court is going to give. And I say that because even if a court has given a judgment before, it does not mean that the court is bound by that judgment itself. As an example, so number one, you have a distinction between the lower court and the higher court. If, for instance, the high court gives a judgment on a particular issue, the higher court might come and give a different judgment on the same point of law, probably because the lower court errs in law when it that division or so. But another thing is sometimes even the higher court itself might give a judgment. Even Supreme Court can overrule itself.
Yes.
And people keep forgetting that. And that is why lawyers cannot presume, or let me say litigants cannot presume that, because there is an existing authority or precedent on this, if I were to go to court, the result would automatically be the same thing. That is a mistake we are making. And I think that can pan out in a lot of issues. And I don't want to preempt certain discussions today. It's going to pan out in a lot of issues. I think I've had an opportunity to speak on this platform before about the fundamental. I remember one of the arguments that was made in the past about Abuja 25% and this and that. And I said, look, even if there is an existing judgment of the Supreme Court on this side, the same court can distinguish another case on the same point and come to a different conclusion. It is completely acceptable.
For clarity, for those who are not lawyers, what would you say that would be based on? Is it based on the judgment of the sitting justices at that point in time, or is it based on maybe newly developed evidence that has come before the judges? What would you think would make that kind of
a lot of things could be responsible for that. One is the fact that a court has an opportunity to review its own judgment, as in Roe versus Wade in the US, for instance. The court can come back and take another look at the judgment it gave some 10, 20 years ago. Don't forget, the law is not a brooding omnipotence in the sky. And as one of the judges say, the prophecy of what the courts will do are not more pretentious, is what I mean by the law. What it means is that, look, courts are made of human beings. Human beings can make errors. It's normal. And don't forget what this famous judge that is the Supreme Court said. He said we are final, not because we are infallible. We are infallible only because we are final. In other words, he realized that even the Supreme Court itself could be fallible sometimes.
Well, it looks like the courts, the justices are back, so we're going back to the appeal court for the continuation of the sitting of the presidential election petition.
So my people, may I quick go back? May I remove this one? May I come back? 1 minute. I come back.
Applications, strike out some paragraphs. They are